If you were to ask me my top 10 favorite games of all time, I'd say wait for the 25K subscriber special video and then subscribe to this channel to help us get there. But equally, I'd also tell you as a hint that within my top 10 is definitely Skyrim, the most re-released game of all time outside of maybe Doom 1993, is, in my opinion, one of the greatest games ever made. And while I wanted to do a video on it ever since I started this channel, I did always tell myself it wasn't worth it. I mean, let's be honest here, there's more Skyrim analysis videos out there than I think anyone can feasibly watch, and I know that because one of my personal favorite pastimes is watching Skyrim videos. But for me, Skyrim is also the only Elder Scrolls game I've ever played, which is odd, considering it's one of my favorite fictional universes and is a direct inspiration from my own universe that I'm making as a Dungeons & Dragons supplement. But I watch every Elder Scrolls related video Fudge Muppet puts out, so that's where my love of the series comes from. But the real question is, how much can this count as being a fan of the series? If I've only ever played Skyrim, despite the hundreds, maybe close to thousands of playthroughs I've done of it, can I truly say I'm a fan of the series, or am I just a fan of Skyrim? Well, that's why I've started this little journey I like to call the Journey Through Elder Scrolls. In this, I'm going to document my journey through playing and reviewing the 5 mainline games. That's going to be Arena, Daggerfall, Morrowind, Oblivion, and of course Skyrim. I'm not going to do Battlespire or Redguard at the moment because those are spin-offs, and while they are on the list to play, I want to save them for another time. I also won't be diving into ESO or Elder Scrolls Online because MMOs are a different breed of review, and I'd rather wait till I have enough clout to get Josh Drive Hayes on the project. And that's only partially a joke. Hi, my name is Kaiser, and on this channel I do video game reviews, rants, and opinions, and if that's something that interests you, then please hit that subscribe button down below as we're trying to make it to 10,000 by the end of the year. With all that being said, let's hop right into Elder Scrolls 1 Arena. Chapter 1! The first hour. The Arena, now 492 years after Tiber Septim, took control. It is said that hope flies on death's wings. Prepare them for it. Well, I guess we don't know the fucking story then. Looking at the Elder Scrolls Arena is like looking at your 90-year-old gran and wondering what old Pop Pop ever saw in her. It has its own style of beauty, only appreciated by people who gamed heavily at that time, or people who are into GILFs. Beneath the eyesore of the surface, a lot of mid-90s cheese and charm lurched within. Some pixels meshed together into incoherent blobs and bright colors that genuinely hurt my eyes, but this game was made at a time where this many colors and details, as well as scope of the game's size, was really only available on PCs at the time. While the N64 and PS1 were both out at the time, giving us stunning polygonal graphics, the size of those games was tiny compared to the processing power of the PC, which is why games like Arena were only available on PC. That, and quickly switching between menus and scrolling through 400 spells and such, wouldn't exactly be probable. Upon loading into the game for the first time, I selected my class as Bard, obviously, named my character the Cockmeister, with all the maturity and high-class humor you've come to expect from me at this point, and chose to be a female Khajiit. By the by, the female Khajiit is going to be our race and gender of choice throughout this entire playthrough of all 5 of the games, because Khajiit is my favorite race, and like all bisexuals, I love women. A staggering thing to notice is that the Khajiit of Arena are humans with face paint, a far reach from the final iterations in later games. No, it says we're a Khajiit. It says we're Khajiit. That is not a Khajiit. That is most certainly not a Khajiit, Bethesda. A bit off-putting, but you only ever see your character from the first person and a portrait in the bottom left. Now, I load in, get some dream sequence from some woman about the Emperor was sent to an alternate dimension, she's dead and using the last bit of her magic to come to me in a dream, I should grab a key to my jail cell and then go into the sewers and head west, then south, to actually get onto the real world. This is the tutorial area. It takes a moment to realize, especially when you're used to modern-day PC gaming, that there is no way to remap controls. Your movement is the arrow keys, which gets really awkward really fast. There is one speed. Zoom! I find the key sitting on the raised platform, use it to unlock the doors, walk out, and find what's called a loot pile. Get some coin from it and head west until I can't anymore. Then I get cornered by a rat, can't figure out how to attack, and immediately die. Well, this is embarrassing. And here we come to our first issue. Arena, in all its mid-90s glory, doesn't tell you shit. It tells you zero about what buttons do what, how to access certain menus, what things do, and what they actually mean. Arena is the most tight-lipped game I've ever played. The only thing you will ever get out of Arena is where the next plot point is. It will not tell you anything else. And I get that people hate tutorial boxes and quest markers, and look, I do too. But the fucking map isn't even labeled. There's no tooltips. When you hover buttons, you just have to kind of click and see what it does. A fine strategy until, well, I'll get to that. So whatever, right? I have to start from the beginning, and here I notice something. I can't load a save. That's because autosave isn't here. Oh, well, Kaiser, it's a mid-90s game. Of course it doesn't have autosave. No. No. The first game to introduce an autosave feature was Legend of Zelda on the fucking NES all the way back in 1986, a good 8 years before this game came out. And that was on the NES, a inferior gaming platform. I will not apologize for expecting the feature to be here. Now, the fun part is, I didn't realize autosave wasn't a thing until much later into this first hour. So every time I died, I'd have to go through the character creation process again. So anyway, I look up how to attack on the internet. Turns out you have to hold right click and move your mouse. It doesn't seem to matter which direction you move your mouse. There are different animations for each direction, but in general, the swing's direction doesn't mean anything for damage, again, as far as I know. So I recreate Cockmeister exactly as is, I reallocate the stat points, and I notice this time around they're different. I remember ages ago hearing a tidbit that the Elder Scrolls series started as a D&D campaign. The developers at Bethesda were doing some custom setting. And this is probably the first major indication. The stats for each character are randomly rolled. In fact, everything about the game is randomly generated. What's in each loot pile, what your stats are, will your weapon land a hit, how much damage your weapon will do, how much damage your spells will do, will your spells land a hit, what the layout of each town is, what enemies will spawn in each town, what the names of the shops are, how many shops there are, what their prices are. Everything is re-rolled on each playthrough, and some things, like enemies, are re-rolled on each reload after a death. But that's a discussion for later. So I reallocate my stat points and go back in. This time I make it all the way to a river drop down. Mistakenly, I thought I was drowning while in the water, but actually what was happening was the goblins on the edge of the ledge were smacking me, and I ended up dying again. Third time's the charm. I go back in, loot the loot pile, and find a tower shield. Only after clicking around a bit do I discover that by clicking on your portrait, you can enter your inventory, and there I find a sword! Aha! Progress. I finally get my first kill of the playthrough and begin moving through the dungeon, and I get lost before dying for a third time. Okay, maybe Bard isn't working. I go back in and I pick Monk this time, get some natural dodge capabilities if this is anything like traditional D&D. I name my new character Fisticud and we go back in. I last a bit longer this time, but I still die. And at this point, I am reaching the point of not playing anymore. The game is miserable. But I can't give up. I want to be an Elder Scrolls fan. I want to love the franchise despite its flaws. So I load up again. This time I use the generate option. I pick random options and get Spell Sword. Give it the best name I can, Bob, and go back in. And this time, after navigating the sewers for a while, finding loot, killing things, discovering the camping mechanic, and eventually looking up how to get out of this fucking place, I make it to the big open world. And this is honestly something that I need to talk about for a moment. In the very beginning of the game, in the dream sequence, the lady says, go west and then south and then you'll get out. What she meant was, go west and then south and then west and then south and then west and then south and keep doing that until you get out. This is something that's very prominent throughout the game, where the characters will tell you what to do, but they'll do it in cryptic ways. I don't necessarily hate this. I just wish there was a little bit more there to be like if she would have said, keep going west and south until you reach the exit. But as it stands, if you just go west and then south, you'll get confused. So anyway, after we exit in the big open world, there's snow on the ground, so we must be in Skyrim. Now, while I was in the sewers, the blue lady told me I needed to find something called the Staff of Chaos. It's broken into 8 pieces and is dispersed throughout Tamriel. So off I go to find the first piece in a place called Fang Lair. After asking around a bit, I find out Fang Lair is by Hammerfell. Well, that helps a bit. From my Elder Scrolls knowledge, I know Hammerfell is roughly southwest from Skyrim. Now, I just need to get out of this town. Somehow. Before I leave, I make sure to rest at a tavern and mistakenly accept a quest. A quest I have no idea what to do with, but that's okay. I finally find my way out of the city and find a building outside. I go in and look around a bit, kill some dudes before I randomly get killed by a dude that's around a corner, and I give up. Yeah, I quit. Fuck this game. It's confusing. I don't know what's going on, and I hate it. I'm never playing this game again. Yeah, I see. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing here. I wandered into a building, and it turns out to be a dungeon, and now I don't know. Do I just wander around hoping to find loot? Like, is that the point of this place? Is it just there for me to find loot? Ah.
With you died our last hope for justice. Tharn is now free to do as he wills.
Okay. I think we're done with Arena. I'm not even going to attempt to finish this game. Arena is the worst start and introduction to a fantasy franchise I have ever experienced in my life. We played this game for an hour and a half, and I am already sick of it. I have never been more unwilling to play a game faster in my life. Chapter 2. Let's try this again. So obviously from the time code, you can tell I didn't actually stop there. Instead, I took a couple days, did some research on the game, and watched this 4-hour deconstruction by YouTuber Jeweler, which I highly recommend. In his video, I learned quite a lot. For one, there is a Nexus mod that remaps the controls to something sensible, which is nice. For two, this game is widely hated by many Elder Scrolls fans. And for 3, the devs have actually stated in the past that they have no idea how anyone can beat this game without a walkthrough. It's basically impossible. That bodes well, so after installing the remap mod and spending an hour trying to figure out how to get it to work, I hop back in. I use my newfound knowledge to create another spell sword, this time making sure I put the stat points where they're supposed to do, and I go into the sewers and get out pretty quickly. After finding out where Fang Lair is, I head to Hammerfell. So you remember how in my first hour I said that I left the starting city and started heading in a general direction Hammerfell was in? Well, as it turns out, that wouldn't have done me any good, as the wildness is basically endless. It's procedurally generated, so you can't walk from location to location. You can only fast travel to each town, and the wilderness is basically being reserved for dungeon diving and grinding levels. That being said, I think it's important to note that you wouldn't know this unless you either own the manual or you live in the year 2024 and you looked it up / learned it from a 4-hour-long retrospective. So I right-click on the map icon and head to Hammerfell. Asking around a bit more, I learn Fang Lair is outside of the city called Rehad, so I head to the palace and talk to the queen. She tells me the key to finding Fang Lair is in an Elder Scrolls, which at this point is nothing more than a plot device, instead of mythical artifacts that can literally render someone blind or insane, when they are read, which is located in a place called Stone Keep. I head over to Stone Keep, open a door, and to some big armored lad who kills me in one hit. Okay then. Now, we are slowly but surely approaching the end of our journey, but before that, let me cover some things. I hated the exploration of Arena. At first. But after a while, I started to actually quite enjoy it. It really did feel like a D&D campaign. You didn't just check your map to see some marker telling you where to go. You had to investigate, read the dialogue, as best you can anyway, because the font is really obnoxious, and figure out where to go through old-fashioned work. It really gives a feeling of life to the game, and to be honest, I wish I could stand being in this game long enough to explore it more. I also really enjoyed the complexity. While it's kind of fucking annoying that this game is basically unplayable without a walkthrough or guide, once you start figuring everything out, it begins to fall pretty nicely into place, and I like that. So after my death to the armored dude, I harken back to Jeweler's retrospective and him talking about how each dungeon needs to be approached with preparation. So you need equipment, potions, blessings, alcohol, and if you can, a few new spells. So I did just that. I got some new chainmail, a new sword, a couple of potions, because I was broke after the equipment store, and headed back to Stone Keep, and I died. Again, and again, and again. I would get jumped by these wolves, and one time a minotaur for some reason, but I learned, I adapted, and I grew. I started listening for the wolves and whipping my camera around to fight them. I slayed the wolves, goblins, and rat hordes. I was ready to take on that armored fucker from behind the door, and so I went forward. I opened the door, and a lizard bastard popped out, immediately paralyzed me, and I was forced to sit there for almost 20 seconds while he hacked away at me, not being able to move or do shit because of the paralysis. And then I had this reaction. No. 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 There is no goddamn way that I finally get through your bullshit. And the first fucking thing that happens is as I open that door and then I'm paralyzed randomly by what, who God knows what, and then I have to sit there and watch myself die over the course of the next 25 seconds. No. 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 How does anyone complete this game? How was there ever an ending? How did people back in the mid-90s, how were they able to do shit? How do you get the perseverance to keep doing this? I don't get it. I don't understand. How does anybody have the patience to put up with this shit? This is stupid. Chapter 3. Conclusion. I mention D&D a lot in these videos because it's the best way for me to draw comparisons most of the time given my background in the hobby. And if I were to put Arena into a campaign setting, it would be the equivalent of a DM who hates their players. They don't want you to have an adventure, uncovering the secrets of the world and following a story to overthrow an evil wizard and save the Emperor. They want you to die over and over again until you give up and get out of their house. They never wanted to be a DM. They wanted to be a player, but none of you fucks will even consider picking up a DMG, so they are going to kill you over and over again until you stop asking them to run games. Every single thing in this game seems to work with the purpose of killing you. How well an armor protects you is represented by these green numbers. However, the numbers kind of lie to you. The number represented is not the amount it protects you, but rather the damage you take. Plus signs are bad, negative signs are good, but you would never know that if you didn't look it up. The enemies are random each time you reload, so there's no way to prepare for what a dungeon holds outside of its layout. The fact that the devs outright admitted beating this game without a walkthrough is near impossible should be evidence enough this game isn't worth it. Play for curiosity if you must, but this is the fastest I've ever given up on a game. Remember in my Chrono Trigger review where I said I don't like judging a game by its first hour? I always try to give it a little more time to grow on me, to impress me, or give me a reason to keep going. Well, I only lasted 2 hours in Arena. 2 hours. That's it. I have never played a game, no matter how horrible it was, for less than 3. I always attempt to go further. One of my favorite YouTubers, Josh Strife Hayes, talks a lot about something called quit moments. How when developing games, you need to provide as little barriers to entry as possible because every moment of frustration and anger is potentially someone's quit moment. At any given time, there is always something that will make a player stop playing your game. And for me, my quit moment was that stupid lizard. To prep all that time, get invested in what's going on, and be ready to move forward, only to be surprised by something I wasn't expecting, and the game forcing me into paralysis with no warning or anything else was the straw that broke the camel's back. Had I gone against the armored guy and simply died again, I would have probably gone out into the wilderness and grinded a little bit more. But knowing that the game can just force me to stop moving whenever it feels like it and kills me is kind of fucked up. I sat here for a while, thinking over my time with Arena, whether or not to go back in and try to go further, to at least grab the first piece of the staff, have some sort of milestone to claim I got to. But then I thought to myself, why? Largely speaking, much of Arena's story has been retconned out in future titles. The current lore of Elder Scrolls barely mentions the Eternal Champion or their adventures, really only being a side mention in some random lore bits here and there, and even most of what is said is wrong. Arena can almost be considered non-canon at this point, and I really have no reason to keep going. Maybe someday when I have more patience, I'll return, have a guide open, and play the most optimal way possible. Treat it as not as a role-playing story game, but as a challenge to be overcome. Arena isn't bad. It's just not accessible. It tells you nothing and expects everything. I can see how people could love the game theoretically. I can even see how the game got halfway decent reviews back in the day. But what I can't see is how this game spawned one of the most successful RPG franchises of all time. This game hates you, and it's honestly not a surprise. Many Elder Scrolls fans hate it. Thank you for watching. I really appreciate you guys sticking around for me. I can't wait to get to Daggerfall this Sunday as of recording and try to see what I can do and get that review out for you guys in the next week. I recently lost my job, so I'll have a little bit more time to make content, but kind of hoping to find another job soon. Other than that, I really appreciate you guys stopping in. If you've played Arena before, be sure to let me know what you think down below. And as always, a special thank you to our channel members, The Nuclear Bomb, Gamer Geek, Peter RJ, and Spirit Upgrades for their additional support. If you want to find out how to become a channel member today and get yourself some additional perks like seeing videos early and coupon codes for the merch store, please check that join button down below. I love you guys so much, and I will see you in the next one.